Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO, founder of SaaStock. Delighted to be joined today by Juan Andrade, who is the CEO and co-founder of Rebank. Welcome, Juan.
Hey, Alex. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in person since October at SaaStock. Obviously, we've spoken since then. But yeah, things are going well. How's 2023 going for you?
Complete contrast to last year. The last 4 months since October have been the highest highs, the lowest lows. So yeah, really good at the moment. How about you?
Yeah, like really good. I have to say, because like Q4, like we had a great year last year. You know, it was a growth year for SaaStock. And with the market, you know, there's a lot of doom and gloom about what was happening in the market, what's happening in SaaS, all the tech layoffs. And naturally, you know, a concern for us, because most of our customers are, let's say from a partnership perspective, are these kind of, you know, big, fast growth tech companies. And we were a little bit concerned going into the new year that will they be coming back to SaaStock because, you know, are they going to have the budgets, and is there going to be a terrible recession, etc. I think like Q4 at the end actually gave us a lot of confidence, and you know, our customers have come back. They have cut back on a lot of events that they're doing, but fortunately for us, SaaStock remains a key event within their calendar, and we remain, you know, a strategic event for them. And yeah, so things have actually been pretty good, and you know, we're quite bullish actually, and long-term bullish on SaaS as always. And also more bullish around 2023 in SaaS and what's happening in the market. So very much excited for the year. So Juan, for those that don't know, please tell the audience who is Juan Andrade.
I would really identify as a gamer more than an entrepreneur, because I've been doing that for far longer than I have been doing this startup business. But yeah, I'm originally born in Venezuela, came to England when I was about 8 years old, and really, this is relevant, but like I wanted to be an accountant from like, I think the age of 8, and that definitely didn't happen. But yeah, you know, eventually got into financial services and payments, and then eventually Rebank. But outside of work, music and computer games are really what I like to kind of spend time on. I've become a little bit obsessed with chess at the moment. I'm playing every single day just on chess.com. I'm really bad, but watch this space. This time next year, I might be a grandmaster.
Interesting, a couple of things. So I wonder if we've played each other one. If not, we should get a game, because similarly, I've started this year, and actually maybe even the end of last year, playing every day on chess.com against random people.
Nice. And
yeah, really enjoying it. So I wonder, I'm sure I've seen, I don't know, have you got a Venezuelan flag next to your name or?
I don't.
Or not?
No,
you don't.
no.
Yeah.
But it is my face. But yeah, I'll definitely take your handle.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I mean, mine is, because there's some weird handles there, but mine is my name, so you'll definitely see it.
Oh,
so
okay.
would love a game at some point. Would you say you're a better gamer than entrepreneur?
I think that I'm starting to be a better entrepreneur. And that's 5 years in. But I used to be pretty good back in my day, like playing little tournaments for like Donkey Kong and all that kind of stuff. I was obsessed. But no, so definitely a better gamer, but very soon to be a better entrepreneur than gamer, I hope.
Good stuff. Hope so as well. And Rebank. So you're one of the co-founders of Rebank. Tell us, what is Rebank? Why did you start this business? What's the problem you're solving?
Like, we were super interested in this open banking movement back in the day now in Europe, which, you know, for anyone that doesn't know, is basically banks in Europe being forced to provide their financial data to third parties that were regulated like us. We were one of the first open banking companies in the world back in 2018. And, you know, that's sort of become this kind of, you know, relatively useful thing. We sort of built Rebank off the back of that, and we wanted to make finances much easier to handle, to understand. We, as first-time founders, we eventually stumbled into the problem of international founders having their banks across different countries and finding it difficult to understand like how much cash they have, spend, and so on. So that's what Rebank initially started off as, a way to sync all of your banks into one page. And we evolved over a couple of years. It was in 2019 that we really kind of set it up, and we got into Y Combinator that year. And yeah, like I can tell you all about what we did, but initially it was just like we were geeking out on open banking, and we were like, okay, well, this is a problem that we can sort of spend time on. And yeah, that's how it started. It's very different now. And actually, yeah. Maybe I'll get to talk about it, but we've literally last week, we completely sort of changed our focus and we're doing this new thing. And I want to talk about that. But yeah. Important to explain where we came from.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we will jump into that. And so how many years in? So you went through Y Combinator, right? When did you go through Y Combinator and why? And how was the experience?
Yeah, that was in 2019. So I quit my job in middle of 2017. I was partway through a master's, and like I started the master's because I thought it would help me set up a business. Doing an MBA is great, but the skill set you need to start a company is like completely different. So in a sense, it was a waste of money for that, but in another sense, it wasn't at all. But yeah, I'd left my role because of this problem that I felt I discovered with banks being very hard to manage. And Simon and I were just looking for early validation, external validation, because in the early days, no one really gives a shit about your product or your company, really, if you think about it. So you need any external proof points, as many as possible, whether it's pitching or some regulation or an accelerator. It all slowly builds up until you have like a solid sort of base of customers or whatever. So yeah, that was why. And Y Combinator was probably the last accelerator we applied to and the only one that let us in. We had applied to every single other one. So I think by the point that I applied to YC, I'd been practicing and being rejected from all of the other ones. And I just didn't give up. I just thought, well, I'll eventually get it. And like there was no sort of, the chances reset, right? If it was something where the more you lose, the worse it is, then of course I wouldn't have. That's dumb. But because it's a simple, they don't affect each other. They're independent, so let's just go for it. How was it? It was, it was the most, it completely changed the trajectory of our company. It helped us really understand how companies should focus in the early days. And I think Y Combinator and the partners there are, they have a collection of partners that have built significant businesses, have seen thousands of startups fail. So their sort of pitch to us was not like we'll help you succeed. It's we will try and do our best so that you don't fail. Because most of you will fail. So yeah, there was a lot that happened in those 3 months that, because we flew over there, a lot that happened in those 3 months that has influenced the way that we build and we think about product.
And do you recommend the SaaS startups that are kind of at that really early stage to go through accelerators like Y Combinator or others?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are. Sometimes I speak to founders and they've joined incubators that have taken 50% of their company. Obviously, I think there's some really dodgy ones out there, but the usual suspects of Techstars, EF, YC, and there's others in the US and in Europe. If you can, you should always apply because it helps you think about your problem, the problem that you're solving, and hopefully, you can get in. And the thing that you get is a network. And that's so important. I think that's something that we noticed with SaaStock, that you just jump into this sort of group of very friendly, very capable operators, right? You definitely get that in YC. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits, and everyone, I just don't see any reason why anyone should not apply, at least. Whether you accept it or not is dependent on your circumstances, I guess, but yeah.
And obviously, you alluded to the fact that last week there's a big change in Rebank, a bit of a pivot, or a big pivot. But before that, so take us up to before last week, some of the lessons you can share from building Rebank, up until this point.
Yeah, I like to think that we just acted as typical first-time founders. And what I mean by that is that you really have no frame of reference for what bad or good looks like. So, you get into YC, okay, I'm doing good. You raise 2.8 million, like, okay, I'm doing great. And like you hire people, yep, that's positive, right? I think the first few months we moved way too slowly. And I think I was acting more on what I think the company should be like, more than what was actually in front of me, the problems that were in front of me. All I mean by that is that we weren't growing in the very early days, 2019, 2020, we weren't growing. And we were just like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Let's just keep talking to customers. I think some of that is really good, but at some point you have to bring in some like planning, some forward sort of planning and thinking. And as soon as we did that, things started changing. We organized ourselves better in 2021, and 2021 onwards, we really did well. But initially, it is a little bit hard to go from like a corporate to a startup, I think. And maybe that's what happened to us in the first year or so.
Okay. And then we're going to dive into it in a bit. But obviously last year you entered the SaaStock 2022 Pitch Competition, of which you won. And we'll dive into that in a little bit. But as you mentioned, like last week, you have done a bit of a pivot within the business. So talk to us and tell the audience a little bit about that. So how did that come about? Why the decision to do that? And what does it look like now, the company before to now?
Yeah, so taking kind of a bit of backdrop, because I think many companies are thinking about this now, and it's really, really relevant. So I want to give the backdrop. And that, like I said, 2021, we started actually marketing. We started focusing on our power users. And the simple sort of loop that we had in the business was like, build a thing or build many things. What sticks with our power users, build more of those things. What sticks with our power users, build more of those things. And that combined with this sort of marketing kind of workflow that allowed us to experiment with different channels very quickly, led us in 2021 to have a pretty cool year. But in 2022, to have our best ever year, we grew from like almost nothing to 500K. We grew 10x. Our payment volumes, so we also added new functionality which allowed companies to send money at the lowest possible rate internationally for salaries, everything else. Our payment volume just went up, like from almost nothing to 10 million in a few months. Our payment volume increased. So we had like this amazing run in 2022. And I started fundraising. And when I was at SaaStock, I had been fundraising, had started the process. So yeah, like that's sort of the backdrop. And then what happened? I can talk about the pitch, but like essentially I started meeting investors, and because of all those conversations that I had and the pitching and everything else, I got to a point towards the end of this year when I was like, okay, well, that was an amazing year. We grew all of this amount. We got some great traction from investors. We won a pitch competition. There's a lot of eyes sort of looking at like, hey, well, what's Rebank doing next in a positive way? And we were excited by that for the first time. And I was like, okay, like, how do we do this again next year? How do we 10x? And yeah, like that was how I started this process. And I kind of thought, okay, well, what's true now that wasn't true maybe in 2019, 2020? The first thing is that money's no longer cheap, right? Everyone's talking about that in startups and VC. The second thing is that the competitive landscape has changed in many industries, in fintech in particular. So I looked at our results, I looked at what 10xing would mean, and I thought, okay, assuming money continues to be expensive, not cheap, therefore I can't hire 40 people. Can we 10x again? And my gut was just like, no, absolutely no way. I thought, okay, well, how could we? And that started us on like a path of analyzing all of our performance and running experiments in January to end up picking one specific area of our product that we'd been doing for 2 years, but was like, we hadn't even built anything for it. It was just this little add-on that we learned was basically accounting for almost half of our monthly revenue. So we're like, oh, wait, hold on, what is this? And yeah, like I can go into it more, but it was really, like always, just, build things. What are power users using? That loop, and just taking into account, being really honest with myself about what is true now, and that should affect my plan for next year. Yeah.
Awesome. And what can you share then in terms of this particular feature? Like, are you in the position to share? Like,
What of course.
What this new is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So look, it's about tax, and tax is probably the driest topic, and accountants would agree there. But what we learned is that all these international founders that we've been working with since day one, they all had this really annoying problem that they just couldn't get rid of. They had no real solution to, around something called intercompany agreements. And, the 30-second description of this problem is that when you're an international company, you will have an entity in the US or the UK, other countries, and any money that you move from one entity to another to pay rent or other things has some compliance wrapped around it that is really nuanced, kind of complex, and most lawyers and accountants that early startups work with don't really know what it is. These tax rules come in from like the OECD to help companies like Starbucks, so that companies like Starbucks and Google don't evade tax, right? So there's these really complex rules that are put on for Google and Starbucks not to evade tax, but they also affect those 3-person international startups. So these guys are super lost. And yeah, we happen to have a tax expert in our team. So one evening, we just kind of mapped it all out. And we were like, okay, this is the workflow. And okay, this is what the product could look like. And yeah, and we started doing it. And what we did this month was to announce that we are now only doing that. We're not going to be doing any of the other stuff that we were doing, the payments, the dashboard. We're just focusing on intercompany agreements and automation. That was like a few days ago. And since then, it's been like the calls that we've been on, talking to customers, talking to founders. It's just been insane. It's like night and day. Starting Rebank and starting this, because it's essentially a new product, it's just completely different in terms of the pull that we're getting from the market. So it's really, really exciting for the team.
Did you see, so obviously you communicate this to customers, and I think you mentioned that 50% of the revenue is coming from this thing. Have you lost any customers? Have you had any upset customers around this? What happened there?
Yeah, we will lose some customers, but what we're gaining on the other side by being able to go deeper into this problem far outweighs that. We knew that we wanted to keep our investors knew about this weeks ago, and some of them even earlier. We were sort of hinting at it. We let our customers know again, like over a week ago. They have like 2 months. We wanted to give them 2 months notice so they can make their whatever changes they need. So like there's a lot of kind of and people other founders have messaged me saying like, oh my God, that's so it's so brave. It must be really hard to dump a fully functioning, people paying for product. But for some reason, when you go through that little checklist that I went through in my head, it's just like, well, no, what we're doing now is like a no-brainer. So, but we wouldn't have been able to do this if we hadn't initially first built that product, right? Because in building that product, that dashboard and payments, we were able to find this deeper problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone on the whole has been super supportive, and we're helping customers find replacement products as well. So yeah, we have to take care of that for sure.
Awesome. Well, congrats on making the decision and a brave leap. And then let's then jump into what we mentioned, that you entered the SaaStock 2022 pitch competition, a competition that you did win against hundreds of other SaaS companies. Tell us why did you enter the pitch competition?
Yeah, so I'd started fundraising. I think I went to the US before SaaStock. So I was in San Francisco, briefly in New York as well. I was trying to meet as many investors in person because I was like, if I meet them in person, it'll be much easier for me to pitch. I did everything virtually before then. And yeah, got some great leads, and I wanted to meet more people at different events. And I saw SaaStock. I'd obviously heard about it before from the events in London. And I think I asked a friend for a favor. I think the tickets have been sold out, and I just asked Matt Lerner, who was one of your speakers. I was like, please, Matt, do you have any way that you can get me into this pitch competition? With pitching specifically, I feel I'm quite a confident pitcher. I like to challenge myself to win to win pitch competitions. I've only done one or two. Obviously, YC is sort of a pitch, demo day.
Yeah.
But it's a part of me that I was I don't know if I can say this. I was shitting bricks backstage, but I was so nervous. But the excitation, I find it really rewarding. So yeah, I was investing, and it's a great place to meet investors actually, and
couldn't tell you were nervous. You seemed pretty icy cool on stage, so you hid that well.
Yeah.
What I know you, I think, as you said, you kind of entered quite late, but did you have enough time to prepare? Was there anything that you did to kind of prepare in the run up in the time that you had?
Yeah, of course. I'd already been pitching, so I already had some little kind of lines. I think to me, pitching your startup is a bit like stand-up comedy, where you're I'm sure there's people that just get it right first time, but for me, I like to throw different things and just see what comes back. So I'd already started that process in September. So I had some things in my head about how I wanted to talk about the business. Entering the competition, I realized I had to change all of that, really. I had to really simplify it, boil it down to make the message even clearer. So it actually helped me improve my overall pitch, because I had to think of what are the simplest steps that I can just use to describe what we're doing, where we're going, why this problem is important. I was practicing every single night. So I didn't get to go to I didn't get to stay at the pubs, unfortunately, or the parties for very long. In fact, the first party, I was the guy sitting down on my laptop writing my pitch. The first evening, right, where it was the whole club was just completely surrounded. It was super noisy. I just had my headphones in. I was just writing my pitch. I was like, okay, I'm going to get this. So a ton of preparation. And because that's how I like to do it.
Yeah, I would love to. I wonder if we got a snapshot of that in the photographs of you doing your pitch at the SaaStock opening party. But I think good that you decided to kind of focus on that rather than many people. Many people are there for fun and they're staying up very late in the evening. So good job. And what was the experience like? So overall, and anything take you by surprise?
What's the word? The diversity. I didn't really know what to expect, but it basically feels like there's such a mix of European. It kind of makes you realize how diverse Europe is. Because I've been at I've been at some startup stuff in SF, and it's all kind of you look and it's all the same kind of people. But at SaaStock, you really notice you had the Ukrainians, and you had the Finns, and you had the Brits and the Spaniards, and you could kind of almost see it all. And I love that. I love because my culture and stuff. I love sort of noticing these things. So yeah, definitely the diversity surprised me. What was the experience like? It was pretty intense. You know, like if I wasn't meeting an investor and pitching the company, I was talking to companies about their financial problems or practicing my pitch. But looking back on it, it just felt really like a lot of fun.
How did you feel when you were announced as the winner?
I see the video every now and then. It comes up because I think another founder posted it. But so I was looking at your body language, and I consider myself quite a good body language person. So I was looking at you, and I was like, I think I've got this. Right at the end, because you kind of gave me a little glance. And like I've scared my team about this. I'm quite good at noticing micro expressions. My team are petrified of it for some reason. So yeah, like all the way through the final pitch was scary as hell. Being in the sort of the backstage bit, I didn't want anyone to talk to me. Like the other guys were chatty. You know, we're all handling our nerves in different ways. They were chatty and so on, and even argumentative. And I was just like, please don't talk to me. I was so, petrified. But yeah, it was, once you're on the stage, because I've been practicing every single night, just like the same lines for 1-2 hours, you just sort of switch on and you just do it. And because I had been pitching to VCs when the questions came, I had some little kind of sound bites of how I wanted to answer it. So it was almost like a very happy sort of unison of everything that I'd done right up to that point just coming together. So yeah, it felt great to win. My voice doesn't lend itself to like express excitement or gratitude. So I remember having to say like, guys, I am excited. I'm sorry, you might not be able to tell. But yeah, it was, it was amazing. Seeing the team as well. Simon was there with Frank, a colleague. And I felt happy that I did well for them as well, you know.
I'll have to, some good feedback there for me, like for this year in Austin and in Dublin. I'm going to have to either not look at the winner or look at the losers and see how that goes. But yeah, maybe you got me there. And why do you think you won over the other finalists? You know, what was the like? Did you get any feedback, or like what were the thoughts of why you think you won?
I mean, some people commented on the calmness of it, how it came off. Maybe that was sort of distinct enough from the others that it stood out. I think if not that, then how I answered the questions maybe, but only because I'd been, answering questions like multiple times a week with VCs, right? But I think, on the surface of the pitch, I think those two things. In terms of the concept, like this idea that we started, it's been my baby since 2017, right? So I know exactly how to talk about it. I know the problems. I know how to answer questions about it. And like I love thinking about those problems. Going back to sort of the 8-year-old boy that wanted to be an accountant and didn't make it. So yeah, it's something that I've always felt, it's just a part of me. So it's kind of easy to talk about.
And what's been the impact on the business since then?
Well, I mean, not only have we raised because of it, we had more investors join the round because of it. We had potential partnerships as well, which we're sort of still in discussions with. A few friends, like kind of work or startup friends. Hopefully I'll see them again if I go to Austin or the one. Where's the other one? Is it going to be in Dublin again?
Yeah, in Dublin again, yeah. So Austin and Dublin every October, yeah.
But yeah, so I think those are the main things, exactly what you'd expect really from, and it was the first conference that we'd done as Rebank. We'd always said like, well, no, we don't need conferences, we're too early, let's test other channels. But so, yeah, it was a great first conference for us to do. I'd love to do Austin. I'd love to, technically I should be allowed to pitch because it's a different sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it could be a first, winner. I mean, it's a bit like X Factor or America's Got Talent, where you see like, oh, haven't I seen this person somewhere before? And it's like, oh yeah, they won America's Got Talent and now they're on Britain's Got Talent. So this could be one SaaStock in Dublin and now going over to USA. Never say never. I mean, we'll put in the application form and it'll be a different name, and we'll see who picks it up.
Oh, yeah.
But good stuff. And let's move on to the quick fire round now. So what one thing has moved the needle the most for you in your career?
Reading.
A favorite book?
Oh, Clayton Christensen's books around innovation, all of them. Like the word for word, the most quality, you can't audiobook it. Like you have to read it in my eyes. You can audiobook 90% of business books, I think, because it's just fluff. But yeah.
No, I agree with, like, for me, I spent most of my 20s partying, I have to say. Most of my 30s reading, and I've seen a big acceleration in my career since then. What's the best advice you've ever received?
It was in my first proper job at a call center. A friend who like was just sort of a few levels above. He just said, like, just become a fountain of knowledge. That's how you're gonna like go far. And to be honest, I do everything I do. That's my thing. Like, how do I become the fountain of knowledge? How do I become the sponge? How do I learn quicker than anyone else? So yeah, that for sure.
What's the biggest failure you've made and lesson learned?
The biggest? Oh, I mean, there's so many. There's like a lot of, you can break these down into like logical failures, or like sort of failures of the head, and then actual like failures of like a process or a plan. I wish what I know now, like with startups and stuff, like to think about myself in year 1 and 2 of the startup. I just look at that person and think, what the hell were you doing? You're wasting all that time. But I think that's how it is, like I learned so much that I should, like, if you're not embarrassed by the former you, then yeah, there's probably something you can do to improve now. Yeah,
definitely. And they say that, if you're not embarrassed by your first website, then you didn't launch it. Certainly not soon enough. What's the hardest thing about building a startup in 2023?
I think keeping your head above the water from a media consumption perspective. I think I definitely fell into the trap last year of trying to stay abreast of all the macro shifts and when's the shoe gonna drop and all of this stuff, and reading all the articles and everything. And I've realized now, at least for this month, with the change that we've made, like I don't even have time to do that, because we are genuinely just trying to take all the calls, meet all the founders that we can. So there's no time to worry about macro or think about my fundraising plan or any of that. Like, it's just grow. So the hardest thing is really trying to like keep all of that distraction out, because it's the most important time to focus right now. Yeah.
100%. What does your daily routine look like?
Generally, like I don't think there's a specific hack with a routine, but yeah, generally I do have a morning routine. I have an evening routine, and it involves, where possible, a bit of meditation, like 30-minute blocks, right? Exercise, reading, meditation, writing. I used to write 3 pages in the morning. I don't know if morning pages, like some people do it. But I don't get to do all of that every day. Some days I just roll out of bed into my first meeting. So I used to beat myself up about not following my routine, but now I'm a bit more relaxed, like do 2 of 5 and I'm happy. So yeah.
Okay. That's good. I mean, like, myself and I know in some of my colleagues that we notice that if we don't follow the routine, that we're very different. It affects us, like, haven't followed the routine, and the day just becomes somewhat changed, by that. But also on, like, not beating yourself up. Like last year, I was trying to get up at 5 in the morning and like doing all these things, and like sometimes exercising like twice a day and it's so on and so forth, and kind of ran myself into the ground like a little bit. And when I look back at it, it was like, oh, why did I get ill actually before SaaStock? And it was like, well, I probably just like overdid it and was too hard on myself. And I've now kind of taken the foot a little bit off the gas and say, well, look, it's okay to sleep in sometimes, and it's okay to get up at 6. It's not too bad. You know what I mean? It's okay not to exercise sometimes.
Yeah. So. What do you think? Like, this is something that interests me because I find that I will go through those periods, come out of it sometimes worse temporarily, and I feel like, but then you get this new feedback loop of like, oh well, that's what happens when I go to bed at 3 a.m. that you don't initially notice. So, how did your feedback loop change, if at all, like between that year where you were just pushing yourself and now?
Yeah, good question. I mean, like I felt when I was kind of like pushing myself, I certainly for a period of time, I felt better, and I felt like, hey, this is great, and like everybody should get up at 5 a.m. and like I'm able to kind of do all this before the family work or before my colleagues get up, and then I think when I get to like sort of like certain things like SaaStock, it's like, okay, maybe I'm 5 kilos overweight, so I need to go to 2 workouts a day and kind of like push it like even harder, and then move. I found like you get a bit of this kind of like addiction then to, I haven't had my workout today and I need to do it. So it ended up being like, oh, could I do 6 days a week instead of 5 days a week? And then that's when I was kind of like really getting really tired and kind of run down on top of a lot of traveling like in the interim. And I think like at the time I wasn't sort of noticing that I'm doing too much and this was impacting me. And then it just kind of, I just got run down, and then I was too busy at SaaStock. So kind of, had to kind of plow through. And then just the realization really probably came at some point in November that, hey, look, actually, all these things, looking back, what I was doing in September really kind of culminated in me just being, like running down and beating myself up. So then I think as I came into the new year, it was then like speaking with my coach and, other people, and then just kind of getting really onto that realization and saying, look, sometimes I am too hard on myself. I am trying to push it like a little bit too far. And that, it's okay to actually maybe step back from doing 5 days a week to 3. And that's perfectly fine. So it took me a bit of time to kind of to realize. So the feedback loop was slow, shall we say, but I was able, and I think largely probably through the help of my coach. I can't remember if I sort of realized it before then, that looking back to this sort of period, like, I was definitely being too hard, and that we just kind of, we change these things, hopefully you'll start to get better and, feel better. And I can say, it's taken some time, but I can definitely feel the benefits now. So I think there was probably like, I mean, it was like bronchitis and chest infections and stuff like that, but it was just ongoing for such a long time that it was the longest period that I'd ever been kind of like, ill for. And it wasn't like pleasant, especially when like SaaStock, that was the first one we did in person for 3 years. And I happened to be unwell. I was looking forward to it all year, and then I happened to be unwell through it, but I plowed through it.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, like it's a topic that I think is becoming more important for me now, because I find that there are very subtle ways that I sabotage my day, where like it's 7 p.m. like, okay, let's get ready for bed. But then before you know it, I'm working, and then it's 1 a.m. and I'm like, okay, let's just finish this. And then it's 2 a.m. and like, oh, just this last little, let me write the list so that tomorrow is a great day. And that's bad. Like that's what I'm kind of trying to deal with now, sleep. But usually it's a symptom of a much bigger thing, right? If like I'm not able to manage my sleep, then there's stress somewhere else, and I'm trying to go through that now and figure out like, where is the stress coming from?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I definitely would, not that I'm an expert, but having interviewed, I don't know, a shit ton of founders on this podcast and spoken to a bunch of founders through SaaStock, and obviously learning, about this and, better health and sleep myself, like trying to kind of, I would say, like switch off at like 8 or 9 and then, you know, winding down. I think everything starts with sleep. So get a good night's sleep, right? And if you get those 7 or 8 hours or whatever it is you need, then the next day you can be your best self, right? And, you know, have an amazing day and be super productive. And if you're coming in because you've gone to bed at 3 and you've had like 4 hours sleep or whatever, you know, you might not be your best self at work or in that meeting or with your colleagues, and be as productive. You know, so I would try and change that. And what I think from the, as you said, you can kind of get a little bit hooked or carried away in like doing these things or building or whatever it is that you're doing until like, you know, 1 a.m. But I think like a lot of this stuff can just wait. What I learned was that, hey, like if I don't answer my email after 6 p.m., everything is going to be there in the inbox the next day, and I can just get to it, and nothing's going to really change. Nothing, the world didn't burn down. We didn't lose that deal, you know, because I didn't get back to them like as soon as they emailed me at 10 p.m. And so just shifting that mindset and just seeing that, you know, everything can really, you know, it can wait, and I can get my downtime. And then it did take me a bit of time as well. I know like I'm 8 years into SaaStock, and it probably took me 3-4 years till I sort of realized this, right? And I was working, you know, all hours until 11 and stuff like that. But eventually I've shifted, and, you know, we're a growth company. And I think I speak to a lot of founders that go to bed at, you know, 8 or 9 p.m., you know, and then they get up early and they do all their stuff and, you know, productive. I'd implore you to not work past 9.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. I'll play a game of chess and then off to bed.
Yeah, with me, win against me. So, Juan, where can people find you and Rebank online?
Yeah, so we're at rebanknow.com. I occasionally tweet, although not very good at it. It's Juan Online is my Twitter thing. It's actually also my chess.com thing. If you want to add me, I'm learning. You can probably beat me. So it's Juan Online is where you can find me on chess.com. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Well, I look forward to playing you at chess sometime soon. I'll find the right time, an hour for that as well. Because I find if I'm playing when I'm tired, I often lose. And if I'm playing when I'm fresh, then, you know, I win. So obviously there's some good data there. But,
all right, so a 5 a.m. match then. I can't wait.
Definitely not. Well, actually, I mean, I could be awake then, but good stuff. Well, Juan, thanks so much for being a guest on the SaaS Revolution Show. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to the future and the new name for Rebank.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Good to talk.